The sound of the airplane wheels touching the ground jolted me awake. I had spent the last 12 hours flying across oceans, trying to finish up work projects ahead of schedule. The plan had been to surprise my husband with a warm embrace and a smile. After all, I had been gone for nearly 3 weeks, and we had barely spoken except for a few late-night video calls. Business trips were part of my life, part of my career, but I always carried a little ache in my chest when I was away from him. Coming home earlier than expected was my gift to us both. As I walked through the airport, pulling my small suitcase behind me, I felt my excitement building. I didn't tell him I was returning because I wanted to see his face light up when I walked through our front door. I imagined him maybe cooking dinner or sitting on the couch watching TV, completely unaware that I was already on my way home. I could almost picture his smile, the way his eyes always softened when he looked at me. The taxi ride home seemed to stretch on forever. The driver talked about traffic, about the weather, but I barely heard him. My mind was focused on the reunion, on the joy of surprising the man I loved. I stared out the window, clutching my phone tightly, resisting the urge to text him that I was minutes away. No, I wanted this moment to be unforgettable. Finally, the taxi pulled into our quiet neighborhood. The streetlights flickered in the evening air, casting a warm glow over familiar houses. My heart began to race as I stepped out of the cab and lifted my suitcase. I stood for a moment in front of our home, staring at the door I had walked through hundreds of times, but this time it felt different, like the threshold to something unknown. When I slid the key into the lock and pushed the door open, the first thing that hit me was the smell. It wasn't the comforting scent of vanilla candles I usually kept burning. Instead, it was the faint aroma of cologne, sharp and unfamiliar. My brows furrowed as I wheeled my bag inside and softly closed the door behind me. The house was quiet, but there was a faint sound coming from the living room. Low voices, hushed laughter. My pulse quickened. Who could be here at this hour? I placed my suitcase by the door and moved carefully down the hallway, my heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. When I turned the corner, I froze. On the couch sat my husband, but he wasn't alone. A woman was beside him, leaning close, her hand on his arm. They were laughing, sharing a moment that looked far too intimate to be innocent. My heart clenched so hard in my chest, I thought I might collapse. I stood there in silence, unable to breathe, unable to believe what my eyes were seeing. The man who had promised me loyalty and love, the man I had trusted with my heart, was smiling at another woman the way he used to smile at me. At that moment, my entire world tilted. The joy of surprising him had turned into a nightmare I never saw coming. Viewers, let me pause for a second. What would you do if you walked into your home after weeks away and found your partner with someone else? Would you confront them immediately or walk away in silence? Let me know in the comments where you're watching this story from, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video so you don't miss the next part of this journey. I took a step back, my mind racing. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but a part of me froze. I felt invisible, as though I was standing outside of my own life, watching it unravel. I could still hear the sound of their laughter echoing in my ears, piercing me like shards of glass. I gripped the wall for support, my knuckles turning white. A storm of emotions brewed inside me. Rage, sorrow, disbelief. I thought about all the years we had built together, the trust, the promises. How could he do this to me? How long had this been going on? Had every "I miss you" over the phone been a lie? Slowly, I realized that my surprise return wasn't just going to change his night. It was about to change the entire course of my life. And in that moment, standing in my own hallway, I understood that the truth, no matter how painful, was better than living in blissful ignorance. Because I had come home earlier than expected, and what I had found would leave me questioning everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and trust, and why breath hitched in my chest as I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the scene in front of me. My husband, the man I had built my life around, was sitting so close to another woman that their shoulders touched. His hand rested on the couch cushion just inches away from hers, and though he hadn't quite crossed the line of holding her, everything about their posture screamed intimacy. My heart pounded so violently, I thought the sound alone would give me away. But then I realized, no, I'd already been given away. My suitcase by the door, the faint creak of the floorboard I'd stepped on, it was enough. His eyes flicked toward me, and the color drained from his face as though he had seen a ghost. The woman beside him turned too, her laughter dying instantly. An awkward silence stretched across the room, thick enough to choke me. I took a slow step forward, my heels clicking against the hardwood like a judge's gavel, each sound striking down what little faith I had left. My voice trembled at first, but I forced the words out. "So this is what you do while I'm away." His mouth opened and closed, searching for something to say. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered, the classic phrase of every guilty man caught in the act. "Not what it looks like," I shot back, my voice rising with each word. "Then tell me, what exactly does this look like to you?" The woman shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting between us. She wasn't dressed like a stranger passing through. She looked comfortable, as though she had been here before. The thought made my stomach twist violently. He rose from the couch, running a hand through his hair, his eyes refusing to meet mine. "Listen, I can explain." "No." I cut him off sharply, my voice shaking with fury. "You don't get to explain. Not after I come home early to surprise you and find this." The woman stood then, smoothing her dress with trembling hands. "I should probably go," she whispered, not daring to look at me. "Yes, you should." I snapped, venom dripping from my tongue. She hurried past me without another word, the door clicking shut behind her. And then it was just the two of us, husband and wife, stranger and stranger. He finally looked at me, his eyes wide, almost pleading. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he muttered. I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "Wasn't supposed to be like this? Then how was it supposed to be exactly? You planned on keeping her here until I came back in 2 days instead of tonight? You thought you could keep living a double life, and I just never notice." He opened his mouth again, but I held up a hand, silencing him. My chest rose and fell as I tried to control the storm inside me. For 3 weeks, I had dreamed of this reunion. I had imagined falling into his arms, telling him how much I missed him. But now, standing in the ruins of my marriage, I could only think of betrayal. "Do you have any idea what I gave up for us?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "The late nights, the flights, the endless work, all of it was to build a better future for us. And this is what you do with the time I'm gone." His eyes glistened with tears, but I didn't care. I had cried enough for the both of us already, even before I knew why. Audience, let me pause here. If you were standing in my shoes, facing the person you trusted most after catching them like this, what would you do? Would you let them explain? Or would you walk away without another word? Tell me in the comments where you're watching this story from, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video so you don't miss the next chapters of this story. I turned my back on him, pacing the living room, trying to gather my thoughts. Every photograph on the wall mocked me. Our wedding picture, our vacations, the framed smiles, they felt like lies staring back at me. "Please," he finally said, his voice desperate. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely without you here." Those words stabbed me deeper than anything else he could have said. Lonely, as if my sacrifices meant nothing. As if the nights I cried myself to sleep in hotel rooms weren't lonely too. As if the love I carried across oceans wasn't enough. I turned to him, my eyes burning. "Lonely? You were lonely for 3 weeks, so you decided to throw away years of our marriage? That's your excuse." He flinched at the sharpness in my voice, but I didn't stop. "You could have called me. You could have told me you were struggling. But instead, you invited someone else into our home, into our life." The silence that followed was deafening. His shoulders slumped, his eyes fixed on the floor. He had no defense left, and I realized then, no matter what he said, no matter how many times he said, "I'm sorry," nothing could erase the image of him on that couch with her. The confrontation wasn't just about his betrayal. It was about the years of trust he had shattered in a single evening. And deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning of a battle that would test every piece of my heart. Because the truth had been uncovered, and once the truth is out, there's no turning back. I stood there, staring at him, the man I thought I knew better than anyone. My chest ached with every breath, each second stretching like a lifetime. His excuses still hung in the air, flimsy and pathetic, and I could feel the weight of his betrayal pressing down on me. I wanted to scream, to shatter every glass in the house, but my voice came out cold and steady. How long has this been going on? He froze. His lips parted as if to deny it, but then his eyes flickered with something. Hesitation, fear. That was all I needed. Don't you dare lie to me, I said sharply. I want the truth, every bit of it. How long has she been in your life? He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. For a moment, I thought he might refuse to answer, but then his voice came out low, broken. A few months. A few months. My knees nearly buckled beneath me. I grabbed the edge of the dining table for support, my fingers digging into the wood. A few months, I repeated, my voice rising with disbelief. So while I was flying across countries, closing deals, and sending you pictures of every sunset I thought you'd love, you were sneaking around behind my back. He winced, his eyes still hidden. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean for it to happen. Then how did it happen? I demanded. Did she just fall into your arms one night? Or did you invite her in piece by piece, text by text, lie by lie? His silence was louder than any confession. My heart twisted with anger and sorrow, memories flashing in my mind. The times he'd come home late, claiming he had to work overtime. The sudden way he guarded his phone. The nights when he'd seemed distracted even when I was lying right beside him. I had pushed the doubts aside, told myself not to be paranoid. And now all those ignored instincts stabbed me like knives. You know what hurts the most? I said, my voice trembling. That I trusted you blindly. I defended you when people told me I was too trusting. I told them you were different, that you would never betray me. And here I am, standing in the ruins of that belief. He finally lifted his head, his eyes red. I didn't plan this, he said again. I felt alone. You're always gone, always working. She was there. She listened. I staggered back as if he had slapped me. So this is my fault? I asked, my voice cracking. Because I worked to give us a better life? Because I sacrificed my time and energy so we could have the future we dreamed of? That's your excuse? That I was gone, so you needed someone to fill the gap? He stood now, reaching toward me, but I stepped back, my hands shaking. I didn't want his touch. Not anymore. Don't you dare blame me for your weakness, I whispered. Don't you dare make this about my absence when it's really about your choices. The room seemed to shrink around us. The pictures on the wall blurred through my tears, but the memories behind them cut deep. Our wedding day, the honeymoon, the night he whispered promises in my ear under the stars. All of it felt tainted now, poisoned by this revelation. Did you ever love me? I asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. His lips trembled. Of course I love you. I still love you. No, I said firmly, shaking my head. You don't get to use that word. Love is loyalty. Love is respect. Love is choosing your partner even when it's hard, even when they're away. Love is not inviting another woman into our home and holding her hand on our couch. His shoulders sagged under the weight of my words. He looked small, broken, but I refused to let pity soften my resolve. He had made his choices, and now he had to live with them. Audience, let me ask you, if your partner told you they cheated because they were lonely, would you ever believe that excuse? Or would you see it as nothing more than betrayal dressed in weak words? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can follow this story through to the end. I wiped my tears, though they kept falling. Do you know what this means? I asked him. He looked at me lost. What? It means everything we built is gone, I said. Every promise, every vow. It's all ash now. Because while I was dreaming of us, you were building something with someone else. His lips quivered. Please don't say that. We can fix this. I'll end it with her. I'll prove to you. No. I cut in, my voice like steel. You can't unbreak something that's already shattered. You can sweep up the pieces, glue them together, but the cracks will always show. And I can't live in a marriage full of cracks. The truth burned in my throat, but it also freed me. For the first time since walking through that door, I felt clarity. I'd been blind, but now I could see. The man I thought was my partner had betrayed me not just once, but for months. and no apology, no desperate promise could erase the scars he had carved into my soul. The betrayal had unfolded in full, and though it broke me, it also woke me. I knew then that the next step wasn't about saving him. It was about saving myself. The night felt heavier than any I had ever lived. The air in the room was thick, suffocating, filled with silence that screamed louder than any argument could. He stood before me, his hands trembling, his lips parted as if another excuse might save him, but I no longer had the energy to listen. Something inside me had snapped. Something inside me had changed forever. I walked slowly across the living room, my heels echoing against the wooden floor. Each step was measured, deliberate, as though I was reclaiming my strength with every movement. My suitcase still sat by the door where I had left it. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had brought it home, full of souvenirs, full of gifts meant for him, symbols of my love. Now it seemed more like an escape route, a way out of the wreckage he had created. He reached out for me again, but I stepped back, my eyes cold. "Don't," I said firmly. "Don't touch me. Don't try to hold me as if your arms could erase what I saw tonight. You've already held someone else in ways that should have been meant for me alone." His face crumpled with desperation. "Please, just give me a chance to make it right. I'll cut her off. I'll beg for your forgiveness. We can go to counseling. We can—" "No," I snapped, my voice rising so sharply it startled even me. "You don't get to break something and then hand me the pieces like I should be grateful for the chance to glue them back together. You don't get to destroy the trust we built and then expect me to rebuild it for you." He looked stunned, his mouth opening and closing without words. And in that silence, I felt something powerful stir inside me. Anger, yes, but also clarity. "Do you know what loyalty means?" I asked, my voice steady now, cutting through the air like a blade. "It means showing up even when it's hard. It means staying true when temptation knocks. It means that when you're lonely, you wait, you endure because you know your partner is worth it. I did that for you. Every night in a hotel room, every dinner I ate alone, I chose you. But you chose her." Tears blurred his vision, but mine had dried. I was done crying, done begging for answers I already knew. At that moment, the door creaked open. The woman, the one who had fled earlier, stepped back in nervously. "I forgot my phone," she muttered, her eyes glued to the floor. I turned to her, my chest tight but my voice calm. "Take it," I said. "Take your phone, and take him too if you want, because I won't share what was meant to be mine alone." Her eyes widened, guilt flashing across her face. She snatched her phone from the couch and fled again, this time without looking back. I turned to him one last time. "Do you see what you've done?" I whispered. "You didn't just betray me. You destroyed us. And there's no fixing us anymore." The weight of my words seemed to crush him. He sank into the couch, burying his face in his hands. But I didn't move to comfort him. Not this time. I walked toward my suitcase and placed my hand on the handle. It felt heavy, not because of the clothes inside, but because of the memories, the love, the years I had poured into this home. Leaving wasn't easy, but staying would destroy me. Audience, let me ask you this. If you were in my place, would you pack your bags and leave right away? Or would you try to fight for a marriage already cracked beyond repair? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see how this story unfolds in the next part. I began pulling open drawers, gathering my things. He followed me, his voice hoarse. "Please don't do this. We can still fix it. I made a mistake, but I can change. I'll prove it to you. Don't throw away everything we've built." I turned to him, my hands clutching the fabric of my clothes, my chest tight with grief and fury. "I'm not the one throwing it away. You did that the moment you let her into our lives. You threw it away when you decided your loneliness was worth more than my love. This marriage isn't ending because of me. It's ending because of you." For the first time since I had walked in, he didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just stood there, broken, watching as I packed. And I realized that was the final truth. He couldn't save us because he didn't fight to protect us when it mattered most. The house felt colder as I zipped my suitcase shut. I glanced once more at the photographs on the walls. They no longer looked like memories. They looked like ghosts, haunting the shell of what used to be my home. With my suitcase by my side, I walked toward the door. My hand lingered on the knob, trembling. This wasn't just a door I was opening. It was a door to the unknown, to a future without him. But I knew it was the only choice left. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I felt the tears threaten to spill again. But this time, they weren't tears of weakness. They were tears of release, because I had reached the breaking point. And from here, I could only rise again. Inside, I could hear him sobbing, calling my name. But I didn't turn back. The woman I was before had been shattered tonight. And the woman I was becoming knew she deserved more than betrayal. The door closed behind me with a final click, and with it, the life I thought I knew. The night air was cool against my tear-stained cheeks, and the world outside felt eerily quiet compared to the storm raging in my heart. I pulled my suitcase down the steps and onto the street, each step heavier than the last, but also strangely freeing. For the first time in years, I was walking away, not from an argument, not from a fight, but from a life that no longer deserved me. That I called a cab and sat silently in the back seat, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past. My phone buzzed again and again, his name flashing across the screen, begging for me to answer, but I couldn't. Not tonight. Not ever, maybe. His words no longer mattered. The only voice I needed to hear was my own. I went to my parents' house. When my mother opened the door and saw me standing there with my suitcase, her face fell with worry. She didn't ask questions, not right away. She just pulled me in her arms, and I finally let go, sobbing into her shoulder like a child. My father came down the hall, his brows furrowed, his arms wrapping around me too. Between the two of them, I felt a safety I hadn't felt in years. The next morning, I woke up in my childhood bedroom, sunlight spilling across the walls. For a moment, I forgot everything that had happened. But then I looked at my suitcase in the corner, and the memories of last night came flooding back. My heart clenched painfully, but then I heard my mother's voice calling me for breakfast, and I realized I wasn't alone. Over the next few days, I tried to find my footing. My phone kept lighting up with his messages, apologies, pleas, promises. He sent flowers, left voicemails where his voice cracked with desperation. But each message felt emptier than the last. They weren't words of love. They were words of guilt, and guilt wasn't enough to rebuild trust. I confided in my best friend, Sarah, who sat across from me at a cafe as I poured everything out. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You didn't deserve this," she said firmly. "Don't let him make you believe otherwise. You gave everything, and he betrayed it. That's on him, not you." Her words sank into me, slowly patching the holes in my heart. For so long, I had defined myself by us. Now I was learning to define myself by me. But healing wasn't instant. Nights were the hardest. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering his laughter, his touch, the way we used to dream together. It felt like grieving someone who had died, except he was still alive, just living a life I no longer wanted to be part of. One evening, as I sat by the window, I asked myself the question that had been haunting me. Was I strong enough to let go completely? Divorce was such a final word, such a heavy decision. But staying in limbo hurt worse. Audience, let me ask you, do you believe people can truly change after betraying someone they love? Or once trust is broken, is it gone forever? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the final part of this story. I started journaling. At first, it was just scribbles of pain and anger. But slowly, the pages began to fill with hope too. I wrote about who I was before him, about the dreams I had put aside. I realized I'd spent so much of my life building us that I had forgotten to build me. Days turned into weeks, and though the pain didn't vanish, it dulled. I began to see glimpses of myself again. The woman who once laughed freely, who once chased her own ambitions without fear. I went on long walks. I reconnected with friends I had drifted from. I even signed up for a painting class, something I had always wanted to try. Each small step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. My husband, no, my soon-to-be ex-husband, kept reaching out. But I no longer felt the same ache when I saw his name. Instead, I felt pity. Not for what he had done to me, but for what he had lost. He had lost a woman who loved him fiercely, who believed in him fully. And that was something he would never get back. The aftermath of betrayal was messy, painful, and raw. But it was also the beginning of transformation. I realized that sometimes the breaking point isn't the end, it's the start of becoming someone stronger, wiser, and freer than before. And as I stood one morning, sipping coffee at my parents' kitchen table, I felt a quiet peace for the first time. I wasn't healed yet, but I was healing, and that was enough. The morning sun poured gently through the sheer curtains, painting golden streaks across the quiet room. For the first time in months, she woke up without a heaviness pressing against her chest. The house felt different now, lighter, freer, though still carrying echoes of memories that once defined her life. She sat up slowly, brushing her fingers across the blanket, remembering how often she had shared this very bed with the man who had sworn to love her forever. But now, instead of bitterness, a strange calm filled her heart. She had survived the storm. She had walked through the fire and was still standing. That was something to be proud of. The divorce papers sat neatly on the desk by the window, signed and ready to be filed. Seeing them no longer made her cry. Instead, they represented something powerful, a door closing so another could open. She had once believed her world would collapse without him, but she now realized she had been wrong. Her world was hers alone, and she was finally learning how to live it on her own terms. She thought back to the first weeks after walking away. The silence in the house had been unbearable. She would catch herself reaching for her phone to call him, only to stop halfway, reminded of who he had become. Nights had been the hardest. Loneliness whispered cruel things in her ear, tempting her to doubt her decision, to question if leaving had been the right choice. But every time she remembered the betrayal, the lies, the look in his eyes when he chose excuses over truth, her resolve grew stronger. She reminded herself that healing was not about forgetting. It was about reclaiming her strength piece by piece. Over time, she began rebuilding her life. She threw herself into work, into hobbies she had long neglected. She joined a painting class at the community center, something she had always dreamed of but never had time for. With each brushstroke, she poured her emotions onto the canvas, the rage, the sorrow, and finally, the peace. She realized creativity could heal wounds words never could. She also reconnected with old friends who had quietly stood by her side, waiting for her to be ready. Their laughter reminded her that joy still existed in the world, even in small, ordinary moments. One evening, while sipping tea on her balcony, she asked herself a question she hadn't dared face before. Do I still love him? The answer surprised her. She didn't. Not anymore. She loved the memory of who he had once been, the man who used to hold her hand and dream with her. But that man no longer existed. What remained was a stranger who had chosen deception over loyalty. Accepting this truth felt like breaking a final chain that had bound her heart. For the first time in years, she was free. Weeks later, she found herself at her parents' house for dinner. Her mother noticed the light returning to her eyes and smiled softly. Her father, though usually quiet, told her how proud he was that she had chosen dignity over despair. Hearing those words filled her with warmth she hadn't realized she craved. She wasn't alone. She had love around her, different perhaps from the kind she lost, but just as meaningful. As the seasons changed, so did she. Her heart no longer beat to the rhythm of grief, but to the promise of renewal. She even began to look toward the future with hope. Love might find her again one day, but she no longer felt desperate for it. She knew her worth now. She understood that she didn't need someone else to complete her. She was whole on her own. On a quiet Sunday morning, she stood by the window with a cup of coffee, gazing at the sunrise. The sky bloomed with shades of pink and gold, a canvas painted just for her. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, savoring the fresh air. This was her moment of rebirth. The past had left scars, yes, but scars were proof of survival, proof of strength. They told a story of endurance, of a woman who refused to be broken.